They say small cars are dead. Well, Toyota says, hold my beer, my small beer. And there we are with a new Toyota Aygo X. This is Thomas with Autogefühl, and I just call it the Aygo X because it all fits to the move, but I should have called it the Aygo Cross because they name it Aygo X, but they call it Aygo Cross. Yes, that is confusing indeed, and there will be a lot of people in the showroom either calling for the X or for the Cross. So officially it's Cross, but the X was taken from the predecessor which had this X shape in the front. Now it's a completely new and different vehicle. Headlamps, LED main unit, and also the signature right here, and you can see this crossover look already here in the front. Chili red is this vehicle color. The length is now at 3.70 meters or 146 inches. That means 23 centimeters or 9 inches longer than the previous generation, now on a completely different platform from the Toyota Yaris. So it's basically a chopped off Yaris now. And you can see here contrasting colors that makes it more emotional, and 17 to 18 inch wheels, the ones you can see here right now, these are optional. Also, once again, big wheels for a small vehicle with the crossover look, especially here in the front. So, emotional approach for this segment, but way bigger than before actually. The reason, before the Peugeot, Citroën, Toyota Corporation were all building more or less the same vehicle. Now Toyota are on their own and they decide to make it a little bit bigger to actually serve more different customers. Fun fact, Toyota calls this one here Pagoda roof. You know, like a Mercedes SL Pagoda? Yeah, they mean this kind of form. It does have something of an SL. Why? Well, there is a convertible roof available. This one is a fixed one. The other Ginger vehicle has the soft top, which will be very interesting. So this is here our Ginger vehicle, so they also have interesting color names. Which one do you prefer for today? The Ginger or the red, the chili one? In the rear there's this very interesting glass styling, all blacked out actually, and these really bulky bumpers. And once again, the color then is only visible in the lower area. Top speed, by the way, is 150 or 160 kilometers an hour, depending if you have the CVT or the manual. The manual is a little bit faster in top speed, so around 100 miles per hour. The light signature here looks pretty cool, neat, very modern. And once again, the Aygo X lettering, but isn't it weird? I mean, everything about this car says that you would also say Aygo X, but it's Aygo Cross. I'm still confused, are you? This is the car key, slim, light, does the job definitely. Then the door closing sound is somewhat okay, not great, but not bad at all. Then you can see here also budget-wise, just, you know, the door painting itself at the inside, but then it also adds color contrast. And here this one is all hard pack. It at some point needs to cover the price, of course. And here we have two stylings for you today. This is the bright one with bright insert at the steering wheel, for example, real buttons at the steering wheel as well, and then all fabric seats in a kind of sporty style, I have to say, with Ginger accentuations and interesting structures. So they are spicing up indeed. And the slick surfaces here, Toyota says they are now animal free altogether. They are moving away from animal materials with the whole brand, they told me. And then we have this red interior for you. So again, the same structures, but then red contrast stitches. And you can once again also see these red contrasts at the inside of the steering wheel, for example. Seating position. Interesting, this feels like a Yaris in the front, and indeed it is a chopped off Yaris. That's why we have like the steering wheel and the seats, they have this, you know, integrated head restraint form. It's not too bad for tall people, you know, 1.86 6'1", still have some headroom left, no problem. The steering, however, yeah, that's then the budget thing once again, and it only goes up and down, but not towards me. However, it's not too far in, so that's actually quite okay. So astonishingly, this works for tall people. Interior overview, you can see here round structures, still manual climate unit, that's good. And then screen size 7, 8 or 9 inch. Why 3 different screen sizes? Too complicated, I think. The top one supports wireless CarPlay and Android Auto, the other one just with the cable. You can always switch between CarPlay and the main system right here. This is a good hotkey button here. And here the car internal GPS. Yeah, it's not really responsive at all, so probably you will not use that. This is always back to the home screen, so I think you will rather go with the Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. And here with the optional JBL sound system, you also have some more depth to the sound here for that small vehicle. It's not a superb great surround sound, but of course better than with the standard system. Steering wheel, as I said, real buttons here, for example, for the volume. Yeah, but these confirmation sounds are really annoying. Gladly, system beeps, we can turn them off. Instruments, let me turn on the engine. And then you can see in the top part we have the speed rather in an analog way, and then we have this display. And Brian suggested that it looks like someone forgot, you know, his or her smartphone in there. And yeah, there you can, for example, see the total average, which is of course at the moment, before we drove the car, at 99.9. This of course will change and we'll keep you updated throughout. And in that supposed to be smartphone, you can also go for a digital speedometer. When you have the JBL sound system, you also receive an inductive charging pad. This car is equipped with the 5-speed manual gearbox, and the other vehicle we have is equipped with the CVT, that is then the automatic gearbox. Well, and here we have the convertible style. This one is also now larger in this new generation. It's also a larger vehicle, of course, and it's just one press and then we can leave a lot of light in there. It's really vast, so I mean, as close to a convertible as it gets. This is really fun. What about the rear doors here and the rear? Yeah, about that. And also tell your children not to use the rear windows here, because you know this mechanism here is kind of like, it's like really weird, and they might squish their fingers with that, and then you can open them a little bit. So yeah, just leave it closed and tell your kids they don't open. And then you can see here, there's hardly any space when I'm driving in the front. There is ISOFIX, so for child seats it's actually fine. On the other side, if you stay here, there is actually, you know, I put the seat all the way in that way forward that I could still be on the passenger seat. Then there's some space here, but you know, it doesn't really fit. Yeah, that's the situation with the passenger seat. Here with the driver's seat, it's not possible at all. Headroom wise, however, it's not too bad. So for shorter trips you can sit here, or maybe you have to arrange yourself with your legs if your legs are a little bit longer. The fabric, however, is more basic here in the rear, quite plush. Yeah, once again, this is more about child seats. Trunk area now vastly improved by 60 liters to 230 liters, up to 830 when you fold the seats. Here you can see the suitcase fits in a vertical way. That's actually quite cool. The width a little bit less than 1 meter or 40 inches, and the height, total height there, is just over 80 centimeters or 32 inches. So that's actually quite decent. The length here, that's the limitation, about 50 centimeters or about 19 inches. And there is an interesting folding mechanism. Let me check it out for you, and I put all the stuff out. And then we have these small rubber straps, right and left. We pull them like this, and then we can push these forward. The only thing is, they only go as far as the front seats go. So, oh, that's interesting. So there we go. So they would fold flatter if we push the seats a little bit further then. And here, different luggage setup here by Brian. And then you can see that's when it's really folding flat like this. So that does work with folding flat. And yeah, there's always this cover here, which is a little bit like wobbling around, but you can also take the whole thing off. As engine, a 1-liter 3-cylinder petrol engine, naturally aspirated, and 5-speed manual gearbox, or then the CVT automatic gearbox. Around 70 horsepower, front-wheel drive only. Welcome to Thomas's driving lounge here with the Toyota Aygo Cross. That's the official name. People will still say X, also because I started with that. And here we have some winding roads to test this new chassis and steering and so on. Engine, of course, is not that performing. That's why I also need first gear here. And also clutch it a little bit, but steering is actually really nice, profiting from that Yaris platform way better than before. It has a nice natural steering feeling indeed, and also the chassis has more stiffness to that. Here the Peugeot and Citroën cooperation, that was cancelled. Toyota is doing that on their own now, and then they're also using that Yaris platform. And well, here in second gear, this is really lacking power when you're going uphill. That, you know, have to be aware of that. But indeed, in the front, when you're driving it here, it kind of feels like a Yaris. You know, it's that's a good thing, definitely. So this car definitely feels more grown up, and that crossover position, I really have to go in first gear now. This crossover position with, you know, higher seating position and so on, really does the car very well. It just makes it once again more grown up. I can more see that beautiful view here down the coastal line close to Barcelona, and there's also more comfort, especially for taller people, even if we are in the dynamic situation here now. And yeah, especially here, I think the CVT would also do better. It maybe doesn't sound better, but it's definitely more comfortable when you do have to, do a lot of shifting situations and so on. But I'm really surprised of how well this car is actually handling. So the only thing, once again, it is lacking power definitely when you're going uphill. This is, like maybe going from Germany to Italy in the 70s in a VW Beetle, and everyone was struggling with these alpine passes. So first gear, then it is. But of course, most of the time, this one will be used in the cities. Yeah, I mean, there might be some small cities where you also have some steep inclines, maybe in Italy or something. So that's why, that's maybe then first gear, because second gear will not do anything good here. But chassis handling wise, that's actually very solid. Well, what about some small city roads here? This is where the car feels at home. Really narrow turning circle, 9.4 meters. The thing is, it is longer than the previous generation Aygo, but the wheelbase has hardly improved. That's why the turning circle is also so good, and also because of the tires they have chosen actually. So this also accounts for this platform, and that's why here in these narrow roads the car feels really at home, easy to turn it around and so on. And the steering input indeed, as we've seen in the dynamic part, is not only nice for agile driving but also for being around in the city. Here of course also I have to shift more. It's not the best manual I've driven, can I say that. Wait a minute, stop here and then twice there? I don't know how that works. Better stop twice than stop none, right? So and here now, clutch is also somewhat okay. Not the best, not the worst. And shifting it does have some resistance though. I wouldn't say it's particularly fun to put in the gears. We know that, for example, the Mazda manual gearboxes, they are really awesome. This one here, I would say, it's just a normal manual gearbox. The CVT brings you, of course, more comfort. We'll have a separate driving part of that very soon to compare that one actually. What is quite notable already right here is that they have improved the noise insulation. That is a massive step forward in comparison to the previous generation, and they have explicitly worked on that. That is once again also why this car then profits from that Yaris platform. They've put all the money and the budget in the Yaris platform, that this one here can also profit from that. So overall, I can always say now that driving-wise, this is so much better than previous generation. On the one hand, you can say it's hard to compare because it's indeed a bigger car, but it's definitely so much better to drive, especially also more comfortable in city with these seats, integrated head restraint, quite sporty already, suitable for tall people. And you have this higher seating position, this crossover style. They only offer it here in that crossover version. There's no normal version, so to speak. But being higher on the road, having better visibility to the front, really helps. And once again, especially for tall people, this is so much better. As for the acceleration, let me show you that. The figure is 15 seconds in the acceleration figure. So, and here, let's start at 30 kilometers an hour in second gear. Let's go. 50. 80. Oh. Yeah, that's about the manual gearbox. And now 100. So you've seen, I mean, I've grown up in Germany driving manual gearboxes, and I wanted to put it from second to third gear, and this doesn't happen to me so many times that I missed the third gear. Yeah, it's wow. So to put in third gear, that's really sticky indeed. So have to say, of course, when you want to save the money, then it is the manual gearbox, but so far it's nothing that I could really recommend indeed. Now 100 kilometers or 60 miles an hour, and noise insulation once again at a better level than before, definitely. And also driving here, just being in the front seat, it feels pretty similar to a Toyota Yaris. It's just a big difference than what we have at space in the rear. Of course, there will be more silent vehicles if you go a segment above that. But considering we are in this price segment and in this size segment, I think how the car handles and behaves is actually quite decent. Also here at these higher speeds, you have a good feeling for the vehicle, for the steering. Suspension-wise, also I think they found a good compromise. When I'm doing a more hectic lane change now, the car doesn't shake up too much actually. At the same time, when you're riding over some bumps, still enough comfort given. So driving-wise, huge step forward definitely for this generation. That's really likable. Let's also compare the CVT and let's also drive with the open top. Well, now CVT and also that open roof. I can already tell you right now I love it because it brings so much light in there, and maybe if you're a long-term subscriber, I love convertibles. And it is really coming convertible close. Of course, there's still, like the covered area here. But it is really nice. And it brings a lot of joy and light, especially also when you have some city driving or something. And, well, the manual gearbox, it wasn't too good, I have to say. The CVT is smooth when you are driving slowly. And the thing is always when you really hit it, so I'm going to do that, then it's always like, but the manual also did that, So in this case, I really have to say the car is just smoother and more comfortable to drive with the CVT. Acceleration is not a huge difference in there. They're both around 15 seconds. And the top speed, minus 10 kilometers. Who actually cares? And we can do another acceleration right here from 30 kilometers an hour. Whoa, that bus should not. And then we can also see how fast we can drive with the open top. So from 30 kilometers an hour, let's go. 50. 70. Brian next to me like, oh my God. And now we're at 100 here and getting quite noisy from the top. So yeah, that's not really comfortable to do, but definitely more for slow driving and city driving and so on. But again, I think we have to hold then for closing it. Yeah, opening with one button and holding then to close it. There we go. So another question is that soft top really more noisy at the same speed than the hard top? I would also say no. So Brian is shaking his head. So that's also something they paid a special attention into for more sound deadening of that soft top. And I wouldn't say it's louder than the hard top. So definitely guys and girls of course, go for that soft top to have just more fun with that vehicle. It's awesome. And no compromise really on the motorway. No compromise, yeah, maybe just a little, you lose a little headroom, but still, with my height, it's still fine here with the headroom, no problem at all. So definitely soft top it is, just to spice it up a little bit more. Unless you say like, I won't use that ever anyway, then you can also, of course, save the extra money for that. CVT, yeah, again, it doesn't sound good, but definitely brings more comfort, especially then when shifting down. Here on the motorway, of course, when you're rather running straight, not too big of a difference, but especially in city traffic, it will do a good job and probably will even be more efficient. And talking about efficiency, well, this is not a hybrid system by Toyota, and it is a small vehicle, but you're also asking a lot of RPM from this car most of the time by that small engine. So we will end up at around 5 liters or more kilometers, 5 to 6 liters or more kilometers. So some 40 mpg US and some 50 mpg UK.
Thomas asked me to come out from behind the camera so I could give you my take on what I love and what I don't love so much about this car, because I am a big fan of small economic cars. So this is not so small anymore. I guess my first not so keen would be the visual styling of the vehicle. Why? Well, small cars are supposed to be economic and efficient above all. They're perfected in terms of making the best use of their space and of course their aerodynamic performance on the road. You make it bigger, you give it a crossover style, it's going to use more fuel, and there's no way around that. Nowhere is that best demonstrated than the wheels. You have big wheels to give this car visual presence from the side, but in order to not mess with the fuel efficiency too much, they are very narrow. Now, you don't really notice that from the front, but if you get round to the back, with the increased ride height at the rear, it looks just a little bit odd to me. It doesn't quite work, but that is personal taste. So that's not the only styling detail that's significantly different in this car. The second on my list of things that I'm just not really in love with would be the cockpit design. Now, I've opened this up so Thomas can show you through his door, but I'll come round the other side to point it out. As I think Thomas mentioned in his review, let's see if I can stop it making that noise. There we go. In the central display, you have what looks very much like somebody left a second generation Android phone parked on top of your dashboard. Now, maybe this ages me a little bit, but I kept reaching through to want to grab it. It's okay, I don't want to complain too much. What do I love about this car? The handling. The steering is excellent here. The brakes are not bad. But, and this is a really important but, the absolute best feature is a combination, surprisingly, of the CVT gearbox and this roof. If you're going to buy a cheap car, you should be able to have a bit of fun with it. And the difference in terms of your usage between the manual with the solid roof and the automatic with this is absolute night and day. The manual gearbox just isn't fun to drive. It's agricultural, it's cheap, and my goodness, you notice those gear changes when you start experiencing some hills that we have here. But the CVT is effortless. There's not so much power in, but let's be honest, this is a city car. You don't have to think about it, which again is really what you want in a cheap car. But best of all, when the sun comes out, or even when it doesn't that much, you can pop the roof back and you can really enjoy the best that this car has to offer.
Well, now once again, we've been driving up here the beautiful Montserrat Mountain, and we can just stress again, this vehicle needs the CVT and the soft top convertible. When you drive it with manual and closed top, it's more like, you know, I didn't want to spend too much money on the vehicle. I rather want it cheap, but then you have to live, you know, somewhat with a struggle with the manual and with the closed top. But when you have it here with the automatic CVT and the soft top, it's like, hey, I bought this car to have fun, because at that point, yes, it's a little bit more expensive, but you have a super fun car, which is at some point also almost unique on the market, together maybe with the Fiat 500, which also offers this soft top. But this is then really a very cool and fun car. So definitely my tip, CVT plus open top. If you want to consider some competitors, well, we have the Toyota Yaris Cross for you, a little bit bigger then. Or what about then the Fiat 500? Tune in there.